Hello and welcome to our 3066 assignment based on inclusive teaching and learning strategies. I am Blake, and our topic today is linking to the UDL framework, which is the Universal Design for Learning. We have chosen the UDL framework because we believe that in previous years that we have had a few instances where we've been able to learn some very valuable knowledge about inclusive teaching strategies within these subjects. And we wanted to further develop our knowledge on this and then also present it in a way that demonstrates how important it is to inclusive teaching and learning strategies to provide these in the classroom. And we think this framework best fits that. Without further ado, I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay our respect to Boonwurrung and Bunurong peoples on whose land which we are presenting on today. We pay respect to any of their elders, past and present, and recognise their ongoing connection to the land. As teachers, we want to continue doing acknowledgements of countries and even encourage students to buy into this.
So according to the Disabilities Opportunities into Networking and Technologies program at the University of Washington, the universal design is the process of creating products that are accessible to people with a wide range of abilities, disabilities, and other characteristics. Um, so therefore, the universal design for learning framework is the educational approach to the universal design that aims to create an inclusive learning environment that caters to the needs of all students by offering guidelines for educators to follow. Um, so based on the understanding that learners vary in how they engage, process, and express information, the UDL framework seeks to provide multiple means of engagement, representation, and expression. So these are the three different categories that the UDL program focuses on, and it tries to give students the best ability to be able to take in information and express what they're learning, to show their educators of any type how well they're going in their learning process, and seeks to give them the best opportunity to succeed. The guidelines are suggestions that can be applied to any discipline or domain to ensure that all learners can access and participate in meaningful and challenging learning opportunities. So this meaning that they're being able to work within their zone of proximal development and still develop in their learning process, as well as still having the opportunity to succeed entirely. The framework being useful for educators of all types, so it's not necessarily just teachers, it can be used for any type of educator or support worker. But yeah, it can help plan useful for all lessons, so meaning that not one person is at a bigger advantage or disadvantage than another, and more inclusive curriculums, so they can ensure that education can both be supported and reformed to be as inclusive as possible.
Hello again, it's Blake, and I'm touching on the key principles of the UDL framework. So the first one that we're going through is the multiple means of engagement. And this is where learners are able to be themselves, so bringing their authentic or unique characteristics to the learning environment, and then being able to find connections to what matters most in their lives. In a classroom, this might look like where the teacher is creating or adapting the learning environment to meet all students' needs, and even engaging students in a variety of way, whether it may be individual or group work, and then changing the way they are teaching. Students might feed off a strict routine where it is consistent, and students might learn that way, or vice versa. Students might learn better from a spontaneous teaching where they may feel like it's a little bit more uncomfortable in terms of not having the same routine. But students might learn better from this way, so it's important to be adaptable. The second principle is the multiple means of representation, where learners are differ in the ways that they perceive and make meaning of information. For example, sensory disabilities, students with blindness or deafness. You have to be adaptable as a teacher and make sure that you are able to present information so that they are able to perceive, and then also um, output information where they are able to show you what they have done in their learning. Make sure that you are catering to their abilities. And it's very equally important to consider identities and individual identities. So maybe their cultural backgrounds, where they've come from. Make sure that you are catering and being respectful to every single student. And that starts with getting to know your student. Last principle, which is the multiple means of action and expression. So learners differ in the ways that they navigate a learning environment, approach the learning process, and express what they know. So all individuals approach learning tasks differently. Some may prefer to express themselves in written text rather than speech. In a learning environment, as I just touched on before, it's important to know your student as a teacher. So using the UDL framework, you are able to be inclusive if you know your students and respect what they have learned in the past. Even getting to know their past experiences, hobbies. I think this will best allow you as a teacher to create an inclusive environment and then also adapt what you are teaching to meet their learning needs. And this is where they will grow.
So how the UDL framework promotes inclusivity. So firstly, through accessibility, so eliminating barriers and offering different displays of information that are inclusive of all needs within a classroom setting. So obviously there's going to be a lot of different needs within the classroom setting. Not all students are going to learn the same or have the same abilities. So the UDLs that can directly relate to these are 1.2, so offering alternatives to auditory information. So students that may be hearing impaired may need different means of information display compared to other students. And also 1.3, offering alternatives for visual information. The same deal, students that may be visually impaired or may not necessarily just be able to see the board from where they are, may need different displays of information so they also have the chance to succeed. Flexibility, so offering choices on how students access content and express what they know. So this can directly relate to 7.1, so optimize individual choice and autonomy. So students may not necessarily want to do the same thing as another student and display their information the same as another student. So being flexible within the classroom may also help these students succeed. So supports diverse learning profiles. So again, 6.1, guide appropriate goal setting. Not all students are going to have the same goals within the classroom. Students may be at either end of their learning process. Some may succeed more than others, and some may struggle more than others. So the learning goals cannot be the same for everybody, and they should be individualized. But yeah, so this can be done through a variety of pedagogies, such as scaffolded learning, differentiated instruction to each student if need be, and personalized supports that are directed to the individual. Uh, the UL framework also offers the ability to foster a growth mindset, so help students see challenges as opportunities and empower students to see mistakes as part of the learning process instead of just getting down on themselves if they make a mistake. So again, directly relating to 9.3, so the develop of self-assessment and reflection. Without this, students won't be able to succeed as well in their learning process, and they need to understand that the learning process is different for everybody, and they need to be able to reflect on their own learning in order to succeed as a student. So having equity in education means that all students should have equal access to quality education regardless of their individual characteristics, so that they all have the same opportunity to succeed. So again, all students are going to have different characteristics and different learning abilities, so it is important to give them all equal opportunity, as they all deserve an equal opportunity to succeed and an equal opportunity to quality education. So the UDL framework ensures that there is equal opportunity for the achievement by designing differentiated instructions and means of expression that acknowledge all individual learning needs by providing a framework where all students are given an equal chance to succeed. So as learning options are built into the lessons from the beginning rather than added at the end as a reaction to difficulties within the lesson or needs not being met, it ensures that all students have the access to the information that they need and gives them the opportunity to succeed within the lessons and their learning. The assessment is fair and accessible. So as students are allowed to demonstrate their knowledge in multiple ways with the UDL framework, a more accurate representation of their abilities is shown and not restricted by traditional assessments that might disadvantage some learners. So by giving them different means of expressing themselves and expressing their knowledge of the information allows them to show just how much they actually know and allows you as an educator to understand where they are at within their learning and what support that they might need. So teacher guidance is responsible to individual needs. Again, as all students have different needs within the classroom. It has ensured that all of them are able to have an equal opportunity while using the UDL framework. So focusing on removing obstacles of engagement, comprehension, and expression, allowing all students to make progress towards a shared learning goal and their own learning goals. So multiple pathways of engagement are evident within the framework. So again, this allows them to stay engaged. Not all students have the same likes and interests, so it ensures that at some point within their learning, they are able to stay engaged with the content and they are able to express their information. And by doing so, they can see that they are learning and they want to stay more engaged with the content. And
Student diversity within the classroom. Throughout our placements as pre-service teachers, we have come across a diverse mix of students with varying abilities and backgrounds. Each student we have encountered has unique strengths and challenges. Amongst the schools we have visited, we were able to identify a variety of students, such as students with physical disabilities. I have experienced teaching with a student who used a wheelchair, and this student benefited from assistive technologies such as voice-to-text software for writing tasks, whilst another student required visual aids due to a visual impairment. Student with learning disabilities. In a previous placement, I have come across two students who are diagnosed with dyslexia. They often struggled with traditional text-heavy content, but excelled when provided with audiobooks and visual representations of information. Neurodiverse students. I also have had experience teaching a student with autism spectrum disorder. They thrived in a structured and predictable environment, however, they were very sensitive to sensory inputs. Another student with ADHD I taught found it difficult to remain focused during longer lessons without movement breaks. English as an additional language, or EAL learners. Several students at my current placement come from non-English speaking backgrounds, therefore requiring scaffolding and visual aids to support language development and comprehension. Students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds at my first placement, some students lacked access to learning resources at home, which affected their own ability to complete homework or access digital materials. Gifted and talented students. At all of my placements, there are a few students who are gifted in specific areas, such as mathematics and science. They often require differentiated instruction to remain challenged and engaged. Implementation of UDL within the classroom. It is essential to design learning experiences that allow all students to access the curriculum in ways that suit their individual needs. To accommodate our classroom's wide variety of learners, we are implementing Universal Design for Learning, or known as UDL, is a framework that promotes flexible teaching approaches that can be adjusted to meet the diverse learning needs of all students. The three principles of UDL, multiple means of engagement, representation, and action expression, ensure that all students, regardless of their abilities or backgrounds, can access the curriculum in ways that work for them. This allows us to remove barriers to learning and ensure that every student has the opportunity to succeed. So how we can implement UDL within the classroom? So for engagement, we can support students with different motivational needs by incorporating multiple ways to engage students. For example, students have the option to choose how they would like to approach a project. They can work individually or in groups, or even select topics of personal interests, or choose whether to create a written report, a video, or an artistic representation. Representation. Recognizing that students take in information in different ways, we present content through varied formats. This can be text, videos, infographics, or even hands-on activities. This supports students with learning disabilities and even people who speak English as a second language by providing visuals and other modalities that enhance comprehension. Action and expression. Understanding that students express their knowledge in different ways, we allow multiple methods of demonstrating learning. A student who struggles with writing tasks, for example, can present their knowledge through a recorded presentation or a multimedia project. Similarly, for students with physical disabilities, we will provide digital tools that enable them to submit work without the physical demands of traditional methods. Impact UDL has on the classroom. By implementing these UDL strategies, we create a flexible and accessible learning environment that accommodates the diverse needs of all students, including those with disabilities. This approach not only improves engagement and achievement for students with disabilities by removing barriers to learning, but also benefits the entire classroom by fostering inclusive, student-centered instruction and learning. UDL encourages active participation, cultivates a sense of belonging, and promotes equality among all students. Ensures that every learner, regardless of their abilities or backgrounds, has the opportunity to succeed in a supportive, engaging, and dynamic educational setting that adapts to their own needs that work for each student.
So for our part B, we've done a handout. It's basically a pretty simple handout that just covers the universal design for learning aimed at giving to teachers who might be just starting out or might not really have an idea of what the UDL is. It's pretty simple. So it starts off with just a simple explanation of kind of the background of UDL, what it's really targeting, and how teachers might use it when they are in their classrooms. So it covers things like just telling the teachers about how it's a tool that helps creating a totally inclusive environment, allowing students for all ability levels to not only participate but exceed within the classroom. So just giving that easy breakdown of it. The next part where we use this quote is kind of talking about how rather than imposing the framework as just a checklist that you need to like get right before you start your class and make it inclusive, kind of the UDL seeks to change the heart and minds of the teachers so that they can then help make their classrooms better, more inclusive for the students. So it's rather than just like being like, yep, all right, well, I've made it so students are able to work in groups. It's more changing your mindset so that you're thinking about this like more and more when teaching. The next part, we just cover the three core principles of the UDL. So that's the means of engagement or the why of learning. Talking about trying to get students motivated. So varying the classes, varying the ways in which you present stuff so that all students can kind of listen into the classes, really take what they need out of it, and just help them like maintain attention and persistence when in the classroom. So the multiple means of representation, the what of learning is just changing how like specifically you present the any of the learning. So some students, whether they be hearing impaired, dyslexic, any kind of like that kind of thing, or some students just might learn a little bit different. So providing pictures, providing videos, audios, rather than just them reading or them just listening to you speaking, it can really help engage again some of the students who might be struggling. And then the last is the multiple means of action and expression, which is basically just how students are able to like portray their learning back to you. So some students might really struggle with oral presentation. So just adapting that class that maybe you have an oral presentation for, adapting it so that that's easier for them to then give it back to you. So whether that be in an oral presentation, instead of them sharing in front of the class, maybe they just share it just to you in a private setting because that's where they feel more comfortable, where you still hear them orally presenting their piece, but just without the pressure of their students being there as well. Okay, so on the back side of our page, we really try and delve into how teachers specifically can include the UDL into their classrooms. So very basic stuff that some teachers might not even know is helping their students and helping them in creating a more inclusive environment for them. But it's just some things that are quite easy to implement and easy to kind of understand and process at the beginning. So starting off, just something as simple as collaborative work. Allows students to work together in teams. So there might be some students who are specifically stronger at whatever they're doing, whatever they're working on, and then some who might be a bit weaker, pairing them together so that they can work together. Allows for another form of, how would you put it? They can learn from another source instead of just listening to you all the time. They might be able to learn from their peers, and they can also choose what they want to do within the group. They can work at their own pace, their own time, to work together towards getting a certain goal or a certain project or presentation done. So some students might not want to present, but there might be some who are in the group who are strong at presenting. So then they'll do that, and then others will work on the research, the collating, the writing kind of sides of things. So they can really choose, pick and choose what they are comfortable and what they are strong in doing already. Secondly, and to wrap things up, just multimodal teaching. It's pretty simple. It's just giving students an option when they're in the classroom, giving them options that better suit them instead of just having a one size fits all approach to teaching. Having the options there, even if they're not used, having the options there gives students the ability to change up the way they learn that better suits them because they obviously know themselves more than anyone. They know how they learn, they know how strong they are at certain things. Giving them that option just aids them in being able to be like successful participants within the classroom. So this can be things as simple as in a PE setting, having multiple types of balls when doing a throwing exercise. So some students might be better with a tennis ball, some might be better with a basketball, um, that kind of thing. It's quite simple and it sounds quite like obvious, but just giving them those options allows them to kind of have more say, have a bigger part within the classrooms.